There's a lot of things that come to mind when you think of the high-grade Iron-Blooded Orphans line. A lot of them good, a lot of them not so good, but when it comes to the Gundam Hajiroboshi, it's one intense, awesome design that rivals the Gundam BARBATOS itself. This right here is the star of the show of the Iron-Blooded Orphans app game Uruzu Hunt, and this isn't the first time we've seen the Hajiroboshi, but this is its second form, which is a premium Bandai exclusive. Overall, this kit is a mixed bag, like you'd expect from a high-grade Iron-Blooded Orphans kit, with some good points. First off, aesthetically, the Hajiroboshi is undeniably a beautiful mobile suit. However, it does rely on stickers on the main body, which isn't great, and compared to recent releases, it does look incredibly plain. When it comes to the articulation in here, it's not great. As you'd expect from a Gundam Frame, it hasn't changed since back in 2015 or 2016, and even back then it was somewhat limited. However, you do get a full, almost full I should say, inner frame, which is pretty cool. But you won't be getting the greatest poses out of it, but the poses you can get look fantastic. And finally, I left mentioning the accessories till last because that is the best thing about this kit. We've got some over-the-top weaponry, a massive cross sword, some very cool butt pack armor that looks incredible, but on top of that, we get the vast majority of the stuff you would have gotten with the original Hajiroboshi, including its drill claw shield, rifle, and mace combo, which is a fantastically awesome surprise. Anyway, let's check it out. Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review. Today I'm taking a look at another high-grade Iron-Blooded Orphans kit, and this right here is the Hajiroboshi once again, and this is the Gundam Hajiroboshi second form. This of course is from the Iron-Blooded Orphans app game called Uruzu Hunt. And as usual, a washed out looking box like that in just one color means that this is a premium Bandai exclusive only. So if you want one of your own, you can get yours exactly where I got mine, which is through BUYEE, and I'll throw the link down there in the description. Now let's check it out. So as usual, before I get into the aesthetics or taking a look at this kit at all, I'm going to take off all of the equipment for saving for a little bit later on, and we'll take a look at the unit itself first. And before we even do that, I'm just going to touch a little bit on the build of this particular kit. Now, for the most part, what you get inside this box, a lot of this plastic we would have seen before in the full release version of the Gundam Hajiroboshi. There are definitely a couple of extra new runners in here for the armor as well as for the new weapons and equipment, but I will also mention that there are some older parts left in here as well that the manual doesn't mention. Again, I'll touch on those later. Just in case you're not aware of what Iron-Blooded Orphans Gundams are like, these have an almost 90% inner frame. These are quite dated at this point to some degree, will require a little bit of extra effort to tighten up and keep from falling apart, but otherwise are still quite awesome and impressive for the day they came out. So when it comes to stickers, there are a few in the box, not an awful lot, but definitely some ones that are on the actual unit itself. Could be a lot worse, but it could be a lot better. But however, I did take this opportunity to try out some new tools. Now, those fantastic people over at DSpace sent me some tools, actually quite a few. I will do a video about them sometime soon in the future, but I will mention that I did use a couple of their markers on this particular kit. Now, their paint markers surprised me quite a bit. I knew they were felt tipped, but using these is a lot more organic than using GSI Craos' Gundam markers, which kind of have a plastic tip. Whether it's better or worse, I'm still on the fence about, but I did try some out, so I will talk about those a little bit as well. Easy to use, I will definitely mention that. But yeah, the build is simple enough, as you'd expect from an IBO kit. Now let's check out what it looks like once it's finished. Jumping now into the aesthetics, and this right here is pretty much what you get out of box. Now I will mention there has been a couple of things done. Like I said, I did use the DSpace paint markers, and I used the red this time around on the front skirting armors as well as up on that tri-V fin, a trident fin if you will. In the chest section right here, I used the grey Gundam marker. I did panel line this here and there, a very quick panel lining. And finally, I did snip the safety nubs or the safety flanks off of the V-fin, which kind of makes it a little bit more pointier and cool looking. But otherwise, there isn't really that much done to it. Overall, this looks absolutely phenomenal, and I'll also mention that this is what the standard version of the high-grade Hajiroboshi looks like. I'm not necessarily sure where I've put mine. I used to keep it always displayed on the shelf where I used to live, so I probably put it into a box with stuff that was on a shelf, so it's not in my Iron-Blooded Orphans box, so I need to get around to sorting those things a little bit better, but I'm getting through them. Anyway, moving over to this one right here, and this is what this one looks like. So just for a little bit of a kind of comparison, there is what the art of both of these looks like. The first form as well as this one right here, the second form. So the biggest change, of course, is the armor around back, which we're not looking at right now. So the main changes on this unit right here are the new, smaller, compact shoulder units, as well as the sections on the chest, the kind of cockpit section and below, being in a red instead of white, but otherwise very, very similar. It is just a bit of a slimmed down version. Now, if you're like, oh no, they slimmed it down, I like a big, thick, and chunky, well, I don't know if they're ever going to release this. This is the Hajiroboshi Elector. Now, that thing is over the top. I hope they do. But anyway, back to this one. So when it comes to the Hajiroboshi second form right here, I'd almost say it's almost somewhat triangular. It's got really large legs, which are completely well, exactly the same as we saw on the standard Hajiroboshi, but because the smaller shoulders, it has that kind of triangular shape, and the point on the top doesn't really help too much. Definitely unique and pretty cool, honestly. Details-wise, the armor is quite plain for details. If you want panel lines, there isn't really a whole lot. A lot of the detail on this is kind of a little bit hidden, like, I guess, all iron-blooded orphan frames. If you take a look in, you've got some nice bits in the inner frame, the pistons, the kind of wires in the front of the arms, the back of the arms, but nothing really draws any attention to them. So if you want it to look, well, a little more detailed, you will have to paint up some of the details. Otherwise, the awesome Hajiroboshi stuff is here, those massive high-heeled feet with the thrusters on the sides. I will mention that bit right there, that is a sticker. We have those side skirts right here, and I will mention this particular form doesn't use those particular mounting points for the weapons. They are included, I will mention that though. And besides the fact that they've changed the chest and the shoulders a bit, it's essentially, without that little back piece on the hip, the exact same Hajiroboshi we would have seen before. Jumping right now into that full 360-degree spin so you can see all the details for yourself. Once again, this is a little plain when it comes to surface detailing or detailing in general that pops. You will have to paint in some of the inner frame if you do want it to pop, that is. I like it the way that it is right here. But overall, it's a nice, clean, cool design. This isn't your usual powerful Gundam red, it's a little bit more subdued. And there's just something about the Hajiroboshi that I like. I really like. But then again, I love pretty much every Gundam frame that's going. So when it comes to model kit sins, the iron-blooded orphans high grades, at least the Gundams, tend to avoid them quite a bit. And what I'm talking about is nubs, seams, and mold lines. Now you will get the occasional mold line in some detailed areas like the piston right here, but these are so subtle, like, well, it's fairly hard to get it on camera, but there is one up this sides of it that can be somewhat hard to deal with if you were going to paint those, so you would have to sand those off. This is in primarily white plastic, so any nubs are on white plastic, which is really easy to clean up. All the armor parts are fairly individualized, so it does mean where you snip is usually quite hidden, and even the red, which sometimes is a little bit prone to nubbing up. I can't see a single one on there. Again, because there are so many individual kind of plates of armor, that means there isn't really any seams either, because everything is pretty much open to the back, but where they join together, it's all kind of where there would be a seam in some armor anyway. But of course, the biggest model kit sin of all is this does have some actual stickers that are required on the head, the chest, and the sides of the legs on the actual unit itself. Probably the worst aspect. So now moving into the size comparison, and there it is side by side with this standard size Gundam. So head height, it's about the same, but that big V fin up here gives it a little bit of extra height. There it is side by side with the high grade Gundam BARBATOS, and a bit of a newer kit being the high grade Rising Freedom, and the high grade Immortal Justice. Now jumping into the accessories, and here's everything that comes inside of the box with the high grade Hajiroboshi second form. Now this isn't your usual sword board and beam rifle Gundam loadout, it's a little different. We've got a butt pack, not a backpack, 2 anchors on wires, a shield, as well as one hell of an awesome cross sword. Now we'll mention, this is what's mentioned in the manual for the second form. We do have some leftover parts from the standard Hajiroboshi, a lot of them actually, including all of its weaponry. So its short rifle, its Mace Chan, and its shield are all intact inside of this box. The old boosters off the back, these are also included, but we don't have the attachment points for attaching them on, so if you get creative, you can use these, but out of box you can't. And I'll also mention the Hajiroboshi's standard shoulders don't seem to be included either. But as for the shield here, it's got everything, that awesome cool drill bit that pulls out like so, and the clamping sections around side, which make it into a claw. All of this is included, so this isn't mentioned in the manual, but it's definitely worth knowing. Some awesome extras. So when it comes to the hands in here, we don't have any alternate included hands, just the standard ones right here. These are standard holding hands from an Iron-Blooded Orphans kit. They do exactly what those sort of hands do, so that does mean if you can find yourself one of the option sets, you can probably get the wide spreads for using with it. So I'm going to mention it right now because I see it. You don't actually get to use this cool little joint with this particular kit using its standard loadout, and even though I'm not going to show the actual extra stuff in here, I'm just going to pop this on to show you just how cool this arm design is. So this attaches in like you would with your normal kind of shield in a Gundam kit, but this allows it to actually move side to side because that drum section in there does actually rotate inside. It's one of my favorite aspects of the arms on the Hajiroboshi. My favorite Iron-Blooded Orphans high-grade frame arms. Wait a minute, you do actually get to use them with this shield right here. I guess I just subconsciously preferred the other shield and wanted to show it. Moving through the equipment now, we've got the butt pack, which is this pair of wings. These are extremely nicely designed. No stickers used on these whatsoever. This is what you get out of box. Multiple points of articulation. We've got this flapping motion here, up and down at this point, up and down at this point here, and we do have rotation at that point as well. So you can get these nice and basically wherever you want when it's attached on. We've got these little fin sections here which can move upwards like so, or downwards like that, that, and that. The backpack attachment on an Iron-Blooded Orphans kit is not this standard type. As you can see, the pegs are super widely spaced, but I'm curious if the butt flap works as a backpack. So sadly the answer is no. The actual butt pack has wider spaced pegs so they don't actually attach into the backpack, which is a real, almost like, I don't know, a missed opportunity by Bandai. Being able to use it in both positions would be pretty cool. Anyway, it attaches into the butt just like so. You can move these all around. I will mention this is a very, well, I wouldn't say back heavy kit. It's just the ankles on the Iron-Blooded Orphans Gundam frames are extremely weak. I recommend tightening those up just so it's not flopping backwards and forwards all of the time. Popping the backpack back on, and I think it's time to get it up in the air. As usual, I'm going to be using this right here. It's a simple stand by Good Smile Company. Just pops on into the hole just like so, and that didn't sound good. It's worth knowing this arm actually only bends one way and one way only, and that is this way. I got a bit of chipped plastic. Could have been a whole lot worse. So next up in here, we've got those wire anchor sections. So these are pretty cool. They're a standard, simple, not too well strong wire attached onto some plastic bits that somewhat resemble a Dane sleeve. Now getting these attached is pretty cool. You slide down these little segments on the rear thrusters, those little back wings we attached on, they pop down just like so to reveal a little bit of a hole or a barrel. You just pop the wire into these. That can be a little bit on the difficult side because it is a bit of a flimsy wire, but you'll eventually get it in there. I recommend using the, well, needle nose pliers or something similar just to make sure it's good and shoved in there. This can be done on both sides, and once they are attached, this is what you get, and that's a pretty cool effect. Now, if you wanted these to be a little bit longer, this is one wire in the box that you do cut in half. So you could have one long one instead of two short ones if you wanted that, but overall, this looks pretty cool, like they're shooting right on out of there. So the next piece of equipment we have in here is the main event, and this is the Cross Mace, which is ridiculously cool. Now, I will mention, this is just two parts, so it is all in black. This would be nicer if it was a little bit more detailed, so maybe detailing it up a little bit will make it look even cooler, especially these segments here. They kind of look like they may move in and out. I don't know if they actually do in the game, but that's the kind of vibe that they give. Another kind of bad aspect is I noticed that this is a little bit on the warped side, and I don't recall it being like that when I actually finished the kit off. It's almost like it's doing that funny thing that, you know, when you've got that simple physics experiment where there's like copper or something on one side and iron on the other and you heat it and it starts bending. It's kind of that effect. So when it comes to attaching this weapon, it's fairly simple. It's the usual sandwich routine of popping off the back of the hand and attaching the weapon in just like so. It doesn't fit flush, so it does wiggle a little bit before you put the back on, but once the back is on, it all works out quite well. It can hold it up for now. These particular Gundam frames are notorious for loosening up over time, and anyway, that's what it looks like right there in a pose, and this is one killer looking weapon. A giant sword mace that's in a cross shape. I love this. Could be a little bit more detailed, but still, Iron-Blooded Orphans weapons never are. When it comes to the overall strength, I'm having no issues with this holding it up so far. Like I already mentioned though, these can kind of loosen up over time, but it's holding on to it absolutely fine. Everything holding on. Whoa! Back of the hand though, could be a little more secure. And just because it, well, kind of fell off, I'm just going to see if we can get this reverse grip attached to see what it looks like. There we go, popped into the hand, and that is pretty badass. It doesn't really slide around the hand either. Be careful of the back of the hand, it's usually secure. I was obviously just moving it around a lot when it fell out the last time. And when this is not in use, this can actually be stored on the arm just like so. So popping into one of those cool rotating barrels for that kind of storage. I'm not sure if actually on the unit or not it can just swing forward just like so to be used, but overall that is a ridiculously cool weapon. I really wish these pieces could push in, slide in. That would make it even cooler. So the last piece of equipment we have in here then is the shield. Now this is just in two colors. That is the white right here. There's two layers of white and then this kind of black right here. As for the yellow I've put on here, this is just a standard yellow Gundam marker. I was just testing out Gundam markers and D-Spay markers for an upcoming video, so I just wanted to see how it would turn out. This is the Gundam marker again, by the way, so not too bad. Attaching it on is super simple. It just attaches into that kind of awesome cool barrel peg like so. Attaches on fine. We have the barrel in there so you're able to angle it at whatever angle you want to get it into whatever position you want it in. Honestly, I wish we had more of this kind of barrel attachment on more Gundam kits. It's nice, it's simple, but super effective. Finally, there it is in a bit of a pose with that shield, and it doesn't really do much. It's not as cool as the other shield that we got with the regular Hajiroboshi, but that is also included in here too if you want to mix and match the weapons, which is nice. I like it when Bandai kits come with something left over from before. So finally now onto the articulation and the usual comment on the build strength. So with these kits, even though I'm wiggling around, it's not really moving right now. The front leg, because it's got a front leg, that leg there on the left kind of moved a little bit. Now I will mention over time, these will start to collapse. That is always kind of the case with these iron-blooded orphans Gundam frames. So I always recommend top coating all of the individual parts, like pull off the arms, pull off the legs, pull off everything that pulls off, and then top coating all of that. And that will instantly solve all of your problems. Actually, if you just top coat all of the inner frame before putting the armor on, again with the joints disassembled, you will have zero issues. But if you need to fix it up post build, then it's usually the ankles and the shoulders and the hips that need a little bit of tightening up. Anyway, let's test it out. So once again, when it does come to a Gundam frame, the articulation is not the greatest at all. Like, just even harkening back a little bit to me trying to crouch it, pose this thing earlier on, it just did not work out. These things don't have much in the lines of knee bends, shoulder articulation, or anything like that. But somehow this thing always ends up, or these kits always seem to end up a little bit better than the sum of the parts, looking fairly dynamic in most poses, mainly because of the unusual limb length and all of the spiky, ridiculous over-the-top parts, just kind of making it look like it's a little bit more dynamic than it is. But overall, it is not the greatest posing experience, and you're not going to get the greatest poses out of it, but somehow it will always look fantastic. So anyway, that right there is it for the review, and this is a silver tier kit, which honestly hurts me to say because I love it so much. It just, well, it doesn't really do anything particularly good besides, well, being a cool design. Aesthetically, overall, this does look quite good, but it is very plain compared to modern gunpla. There's nothing coming through to the surface from underneath. It does require some stickers on the actual main unit itself, and overall, everything is a little bit on the plain looking side. However, it does look very cool, albeit plain. When it comes to the accessories in here, this is definitely this kit's strongest aspect, because not only does it come with everything that you need for this particular kit right here, including that absolutely monolithic awesome sword and cool backpack, we also get a lot of the stuff from the original Hajiroboshi, meaning this has a lot of options in the box, including alternate shield, mace, and rifle, which are not mentioned on the box whatsoever, so some nice bonuses in here definitely. Finally, when it does come to the build strength and articulation, this is where it drops the ball entirely. Articulation wise, you don't get much out of it, but what you do get looks great, and the overall build is typical high-grade iron-blooded orphans Gundam frame, which needs a lot of work to be perfect. But you know, what can I say? If you love high-grade iron-blooded orphans kits, this is going to be exactly for you, because I know I love it 2 bits, but it just is extremely dated, and if you're going from newer kits to something like this, you may find yourself somewhat disappointed. But yeah, basically, if you like iron-blooded orphans high grades, go for it. I got mine through BUYEE, link in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more Gunpla reviews, and I'll see you next time. As always, this video right here would not have been possible without each and every single one of you guys, so thank you so much for watching, and as usual, special thanks to those of you who helped me out over on the channel memberships right here and on Patreon, including Abraxas, Caleb Engelhart, Dashil Marmion, Go Little Rockstar, Joe, RG59061, 10 Soldier YT, and Van Fawn.